Bill, you've been pretty consistent with your praise of both Amar and Zach. What kind of stands out to you when you think back about coaching those guys?
Well, I think that people get a chance to see the talent level and the performance, and just how elite players they are. But you're fortunate as a coach to get to know them as people. I really admire both of them as guys. Really good with their families, really easy to deal with, good guys. I thought while they were here, they were both of them were committed to doing what was necessary. Um, but I just enjoyed being around both of them as people. They're just great guys, and they all both of them bring different things to the table. When they're out there on the court, but I don't think you can dispute their talent level, their abilities, and what they've done throughout their careers in this league. And people see that, but they don't get a chance to see maybe who they are as people. And that's the one thing I really admired about both of them, is who they are, as guys.
Billy, with all that said, I mean, I know you're kind of today's the day I'm focused on, but when you do look back on when those two were together, do you feel like kind of like empty that it didn't live up to the expectations because of whether it was the Lonzo injury or just different things? You get to the playoffs and Zach got like COVID for like the eighth time, and it just seemed like there was always something that held that group back. I mean, do you look back on it and go, man, I feel like we missed an opportunity with that group?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way because I was able to see the commitment that those two guys made. But the unfortunate part was, and I'm not saying how the year would have ended, but it was a very, very small sample size when we were whole,
Yeah.
and the sample was a good sample, right? And I think when Lonzo went out, there was just a lot of things to deal with. One is, I thought Lonzo, to his credit, being in the league for a while, understood the four guys on the floor. He understood how to get maybe Zach out in transition and get him in space. He knew when the game needed to be slowed, we can kind of get Demar and Vooch into spots. And then he and Alex were just monsters on the perimeter defensively. Everything for us during those 40 games. And then when Lonzo went down, and Io came in and did a wonderful job, but it's a lot for a guy to come in as a point guard, as a rookie, to handle that. Kobe had a shoulder injury. He was dealing with it. To your point, Alex breaks his wrist. There was a lot of things that I would have loved to have been able to see that group stay whole, to see what would have happened. So some of it and a lot of it was probably out of our control in a lot of ways. And I just it would have been great to be able to see that whole group be able to stay together and what that would have looked like.
Billy, to this point, opponents have shot a league worst percentage from beyond the arc in history. How much do you attribute that poor shooting to your pace of play?
I kind of don't. Obviously, I think for us, the playing fast and trying to wear teams down, with the pace is something we started, I think, last year. But I also think too, a lot of it's going to come down to how well you can test, on shots, and it's pretty. When I say eye-opening, it's eye-opening from the standpoint that our numbers from the three-point line aren't great when teams get uncontested threes, and I think that's probably general for most teams. I don't think we're in any way different. And when we contest, our numbers are good. For example, we didn't do a great job on Alexander. Walker, the last game against Atlanta. He was 4 for 6 from threes, and a lot of times we're running to him with a hand down, and then you're trying to put a hand up late, and he made some big threes. I think we made a three. He came back. I think we got it by 6, and he cut it right back down to 3. Like, it's hard against shooters to close out like that without having a hand up and really being able to contest. So I think some of the 3-point rate is going to be attributed to how well we can contest.
You said, go ahead.
No, sorry, I have a baseball question, actually.
You were saying
Great.
the other day about going by your gut sometimes with rotations during the game. Is that more so this year because of the kind of youth of the team, or you always done that?
Well, I mean, I think you have to do that to a certain standpoint. I think a lot of it too is when you have veteran guys that have a large body of work, there's a reliability that you have, and those guys have been in those situations so often. Now, everybody has bad games, bad moments, and, there may be times where you do, close with a different lineup. I mean, that does happen. But generally, those guys that have closed throughout their career are in those positions because that's who they are. I think for our guys, with Kobe being out in particular, we have a lot of guys that have been in those situations, but maybe haven't been in them consistently, like maybe Vooch has, right? And so you're just trying to go, who's playing well on that given night? What combinations of guys are doing a good job? The thing I was been most encouraged about is, we've had at least 7 guys in double figures, and I think that we've got to be a team that, is going to have to rely on pace of play, ball movement, player movement, and then you're going to look at matchups at the end of the game. Who you feel like the best matchups are, and who's playing well. I mean, it's really what you're trying to do. And as I said, I'm not going to always get it right, but you're just trying to go off of the body work that's in front of you that night and what's going on in the game, and maybe who the other guys have out there.
I was talking to my friend Paul, a baseball expert, who's telling him about the Tribune, and we were talking about that awful baseball game the other day of 18 innings with nothing going on, and I was thinking about basketball in the sense of overtime. Do you think basketball needs 5 minutes of overtime? Baseball changed it to like a run on second, so they speed up these extra inning games. And do you think the game needs these 5 minutes of overtime? Would you rather see it? Because sometimes the All-Star, they do some things where they shorten it, and hockey's done something. Basketball needs to change to 5-minute overtime.
I mean, I
know you don't get to decide.
No, I don't. I mean, that's always, it's just kind of always what I've been accustomed to. I probably don't have like a great opinion or answer on that. I'm fine with it personally, how we play the 5 minutes. I think it's good. I think it's certainly something that, you can make an argument that, I know the G League does it to a certain points, do it like that. Certainly getting the first possession overtime is important after the jump ball. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I personally felt like the 5 minutes is fine.
Coach, I want to get this correctly so I don't misquote him. Steve Kerr last night, prior to the game with Golden State and the Clippers, said that because of the rash of early season injuries, he says the stress on NBA players' bodies is more now than ever due to fast pace and style of play. Do you sense that is something that is happening to a body of an NBA player?
I agree with that 100%. I think that the athleticism of these guys, the speed of these guys, and the speed of the game at which it's going, I said this before, I think we're getting out of this thing where, certain situations, I'm not saying it's this way for everybody, but you're getting to a point in time with the pace of play. It's really, really hard for guys to play a whole 12 minutes. I mean, that was pretty standard for a long period of time. I made this comment in the playoffs. You saw teams shorten their bench in the playoffs and play 7 or 8 guys, and now you're seeing teams play 10, 11 guys. So I think the pace and speed of the game, there's a lot on these guys physically. And I would say a guy that's playing 28 or 30 minutes in today's game, it may look a lot different than the 20 or 30 minutes 10 years ago. I definitely think there's a lot more of a toll on these guys physically in terms of what's asked of them on both ends of the floor, because it's not only the running part of it, it's the defensive part, and then it's the movement part. There's the screening, the physical confrontation. There's a lot that goes into it. So I think with the speed and the number of possessions, I mean, I said this before, I think we led the league last year at like 103.5 possessions per game. Like right now, that's like 15th or 16th in the league. And I know it's early, and I know it's only 3 to 5 games teams have played, but already you can see. I mean, we're not that number a year ago isn't even close, not even in the top 10 anymore. So I think that's just what you're seeing league wide, and it's really hard to play with that kind of speed and have guys be effective and efficient for long stretches of time. Guys get tired.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Coach.
you.